Chapter 7. They stared at each other for a few minutes, and then the other mother said, "Manners." She folded the white paper bag carefully so no black beetles could escape, and she placed it back in the shopping bag. Then she stood up and up and up. She seemed taller than Coraline remembered. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out first the black door key, which she frowned at and tossed into her handbag, and then a tiny silver-coloured key. She held it up triumphantly. "There we are," she said. "This is for you, Coraline, for your own good, because I love you. To teach you manners. Manners maketh man, after all." She pulled Coraline back into the hallway and advanced upon the mirror at the end of the hall, and then she pushed the tiny key into the fabric of the mirror, and it twisted. The mirror opened like a door, revealing a dark space beyond it. "You may come out when you have learned manners," said the other mother, "and when you're ready to be a loving daughter." She picked Coraline up and pushed her into the dim space behind the mirror, a fragment of the beetle still sticking to her lower lip, and there was no expression at all in her black button eyes. Then she swung the mirror door closed and left Coraline in the blackness. Sorry, that was Dexter making an annoying noise. Somewhere inside her, Coraline could feel a huge sob welling up, and then she stopped it. Before it came out, she took a deep breath and let it go. She put her hand out to touch the space in which she was imprisoned. It was the size of a broom cupboard, tall enough to stand in or to sit in, not wide or deep enough to lie down in. One wall was glass, and it felt cold to the touch. She went round the tiny room a second time, running her hands over every surface that she could feel, looking for doorknobs or switches or concealed catches, some way to get out. She found nothing. A spider scuttled over the back of her hand, and she choked back a shriek. But apart from the spider, she was alone in the cupboard, in the pitch dark. And then her hand touched something that felt for all the world like somebody's cheek and lips, small and cold. And a voice whispered in her ear, "Hush and shush, say nothing, for the beldam might be listening." Coraline said nothing. She felt a cold hand touch her face, fingers running over it like the gentle beat of a moth's wings. Another voice, hesitant and so faint Coraline wondered if she was imagining it, and said, art thou alive?" "Yes," whispered Coraline. "Poor child," said the first voice. "Who are you?" said Coraline. "Names, names, names," said another voice, all far away and lost. "The names are the first things to go, after the breath has gone and the beating of the heart. We keep the memories longer than our names. I still keep pictures in my mind of my governess, on some May morning carrying my hoop and stick, the morning sun behind her, all the tulips bobbing in the breeze. but I've forgotten the name of the governess, and of the tulips too. I don't think tulips have names, said Coraline. They're just tulips. Perhaps, said the voice sadly, but I've always thought that these tulips must have had names. They were red and orange and red, and orange and red and yellow like the embers in the nursery fire of a winter's evening. I remember them. The voice sounded so sad that Caroline put out a hand to the place where it was coming from, and she found a cold hand, and she squeezed it tightly. Her eyes were beginning to get used to the darkness. Now Caroline saw, or imagined she saw, 3 shapes. They were the shapes of children, about her own size. The cold hand squeezed her hand back. "Thank you," said the voice. "Are you a girl or a boy?" said Coraline. There was a pause. "When I was small, I wore skirts, and my hair was long and curled," it said doubtfully. "But now that you ask, it does seem to me that one day they took my skirts and gave me breeches and cut my hair." "'Tain't something we give a mind to," said the voice of the first. "A boy, perhaps, then," continued the one whose hand she was holding. "I believe I was once a boy." And it glowed a little more brightly in the darkness of the room behind the mirror. "What happened to you all?" said Coraline. "How did you come here?" "She left us here," said one of the voices. "She stole our hearts, she stole our souls, and she took our lives away, and she left us here, and she forgot about us in the dark." "You poor things," said Coraline. "How long have you been here?" "So very long a time," said a voice. "Aye, time beyond reckoning," said another. "I walked through the scullery door," said the voice of one that might have been a boy, "and I found myself back in the parlour, but she was waiting for me. She told me she was my other mamma, but I never saw my true mamma again." "Flee," said the very first of the voices, another girl, Coraline fancied. "Flee while there's still air in your lungs and blood in your veins and warmth in your heart. Flee while you still have a mind and a soul." "I'm not running away," said Coraline. "She has my parents. I came to get them back." "Ah, but she'll keep you here while the days turn to dust, and the leaves fall, and the years pass one after the next like the tick-tick-ticking of a clock." "No," said Coraline, "she won't." There was a silence then in the room behind the mirror. "Peradventure," said a voice in the darkness, "if you could win your mamma and your papa back from the beldam, you could also win free our souls." "Has she taken them?" said Coraline, shocked. "Aye, and hidden them. That is why we cannot leave here when we died. She kept us, she fed on us, until now we're nothing left of ourselves, only snakeskin and spider husks. Find our secret hearts, young mistress." "And what will happen to you if I do?" asked Coraline. The voices said nothing. "And what's she going to do to me?" The pale figures pulsed faintly. She could imagine that they were nothing more than after-images, like the glow left by a bright light in your eyes after the lights go out. "It doth not hurt," whispered one faint voice. "She will take your life and all you are, and all you carest for, and she will leave you with nothing but mist and fog. She'll take your joy, and one day you'll awake, and your heart and your soul will be gone. A husk you'll be, a wisp you'll be, and a thing no more than a dream or waking of a memory of something forgotten. Hollow, said the third voice, hollow, 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 hollow. You must flee. I don't think so, said Coraline. I tried running away. It didn't work. She just took my parents. Can you tell me how to get out of this room? If we knew, we would tell you. Poor things, said Coraline to herself. She sat down. She took off her sweater and rolled it up and put it behind her head as a pillow. She won't keep me in the dark forever, said Coraline. She brought me here to play games. Games and challenges, the cat said. I'm not much of a challenge here in the dark. She tried to get comfortable, twisting and bending herself to fit the cramped space behind the mirror. Her stomach rumbled. She ate her last apple, taking the tiniest bites, making it last as long as she could. When she'd finished, she was still hungry, when an idea struck her, and she whispered, "When she comes to let me out, why don't you three come with me?" "We wish we could," they sighed, in their barely there voices. "But she has our hearts in her keeping. Now we belong to the dark and to the empty places. The light would shrivel us and burn." "Oh," said Coraline. She closed her eyes, which made the darkness darker, and resting her head on the rolled-up sweater, she went to sleep. And as she fell asleep, she thought she felt a ghost cheek kiss her cheek tenderly, and a small voice whisper into her ear, a voice so faint it was barely there at all, a gentle, wispy nothing of a voice so hushed that Coraline could almost believe she was imagining it. "Look through the stone," it said, and then she slept.